All right, let's dive straight into an absolutely fascinating mystery of biology and explore exactly how traits are passed from generation to generation. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to unpack the incredible science of exactly who you are. You know how you look at old family photos and immediately spot those resemblances, right? Like you might have your mother's eyes or maybe your grandfather's smile. But have you ever stopped and wondered why brothers and sisters who literally share the exact same parents can end up looking surprisingly different from one another?
To crack this case, here is our roadmap. We'll be looking at 1. The mystery of family traits, 2. Mendel and his P's, 3. Predicting traits with probability, 4. DNA, genes, and chromosomes, 5. Traits and genetic disorders, and finally, 6. Genetics and the environment.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the mystery of family traits. Our detective story starts with one fundamental concept: heredity. Basically, heredity is the transmission of inherited traits from parents to offspring. It is the biological transfer of information that decides everything from the color of your eyes to how tall you're going to grow. And the whole field of science dedicated to studying this incredible process, that's what we call genetics.
Moving right along to Section 2, Mendel and his P's. Okay, so to really grasp modern genetics, we actually have to take a trip back to the mid-1800s to a rather unexpected place, a monastery garden. A 19th century Austrian monk named Gregor Mendel discovered the foundations of everything we're talking about today. He carefully bred purebred pea plants that had easily observable contrasting traits. We're talking tall versus short plants, purple versus white flowers, round versus wrinkled seeds. He just wanted to see exactly what would happen when these purebred lines were mixed together. And here is where it gets wild. When Mendel crossed a purebred tall plant with a purebred short plant, in that first generation, something shocking happened. All the offspring were tall. The short trait literally just vanished completely. So Mendel called that visible tall trait the dominant trait and the hidden short trait the recessive trait. But then, when he crossed those first-generation tall plants with each other, that vanished short trait mysteriously reappeared in the second generation.
Which brings us to Section 3. Predicting traits with probability.
So why did that short trait make a comeback out of nowhere? Well, it's all about the math behind the biology. This beautifully illustrates what's known as Mendel's law of segregation. When he counted the second-generation plants, the ratio was incredibly consistent. Exactly 75% showed that dominant, tall trait, and 25% showed the hidden recessive short trait. Mendel figured out that 2 hereditary factors must control each trait, one from each parent, and these factors actually separate when reproduction occurs.
This brings us to a totally crucial distinction: the difference between what's on the inside and what's on the outside. An organism's actual genetic combination is its genotype. Let's say we use an uppercase T for the dominant tall factor and a lowercase t for the recessive short factor. The observable characteristic, what we actually see with our own eyes, is the phenotype. So a plant can physically look tall, that's its phenotype, while secretly carrying a short genetic factor, giving it a mixed TT genotype. To figure this out, scientists use a super handy probability engine called a Punnett square to predict these exact outcomes. If you cross 2 mixed T plants, the square shows us the 4 possible combinations: 1 TT, 2 TTs, and 1 TT. Since 3 out of 4 combinations contain at least one dominant T, the plant is tall. Only that single TT combination results in a short plant. And this probability explains exactly why unique combinations of genetic factors make siblings look different. It all comes down to which specific combination you happen to inherit.
All right, let's zoom way in for Section 4, DNA, genes, and chromosomes.
Those mysterious factors Mendel was talking about, we now know them as genes. Genes are specific segments of a double helix molecule called DNA. And it's honestly mind-blowing to think that this entire molecule is written like a chemical instruction manual using just 4 simple letters: adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine. The specific order of those 4 letters forms the exact blueprint that tells your cells how to build proteins, which ultimately determines your physical traits.
And as humans, we neatly pack all of these genetic instructions into exactly 46 structures called chromosomes. These are organized perfectly into 23 pairs. True to Mendel's original theories, you inherit 1 chromosome in each pair from your mom and the other from your dad.
Now, to pass these pairs down, our bodies do this elegant cellular dance called meiosis to create reproductive cells, or gametes. During meiosis, chromosome pairs separate, so each gamete only gets 1 chromosome from each pair. But crucially, before they separate, the genetic material is completely shuffled through a process called recombination. It's kind of like shuffling a deck of cards before dealing a hand. This step-by-step process creates completely unique reproductive cells. It's the exact reason biological diversity exists, and it's why you are totally unique, even compared to your own siblings.
Next up is Section 5, Traits and Genetic Disorders. So before we talk about genetic disorders, we've got to touch on biological sex. Out of our 23 pairs of chromosomes, one pair specifically determines biological sex. Females typically possess 2 X chromosomes, while males typically possess 1 X and 1 Y. But these chromosomes don't just determine sex, they also carry specific sex-linked traits. Take red-green color blindness, for example. It's carried on the X chromosome. Because males only have 1 X chromosome, if they inherit a recessive trait for color blindness, there's no dominant trait on a second X chromosome to mask it, and that's exactly why color blindness affects males so much more frequently.
Unfortunately, this intricate copying and shuffling process we just talked about isn't always flawless. When changes occur in gene sequences, which we call mutations, or when there are changes in the number or structure of chromosomes, it can lead to inherited genetic disorders. We're talking about conditions like hemophilia, cystic fibrosis, and Down syndrome. Because of these mutations, genetic testing has become an absolutely crucial part of modern medicine, allowing us to essentially read the code and proactively diagnose these conditions.
Finally, we arrive at Section 6, Genetics and the Environment.
Here is the twist. Our detective story doesn't end with just DNA. You are not strictly a product of your genetic code. Things like your athletic performance, your height, or even your skin color aren't solely based on your inherited genes. They are deeply, deeply influenced by environmental factors. Your nutrition, your exercise routine, the climate you live in, and yes, even the stress you experience all directly impact how your traits are expressed.
Ultimately, heredity and environment work firmly together. Organisms are shaped by both their genetic information and the world around them. It really highlights the beautiful biological unity of life. You can think of it this way. Our inherited genes provide the architectural blueprint, but our environment, that actually builds the final house.
So, I'll leave you with this. If our environment can physically change how our inherited genes are expressed, how much of your identity is truly written in your DNA, and how much is shaped by how you actually live? The next time you're looking at your family photos, keep that provocative thought in mind, and keep questioning the incredible science of who you are. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.